It is Tuesday, and that means it's time for the bullpen. And the bullpen show, we talk everything about sales, building sales teams, selling products, because I am in the process of building out my $1 billion sales team. They're literally right next door, and I want to help you guys do the same thing and share my experiences in terms of what I've learned, because we've done virtual sales teams, where we've now shifted to in-person sales teams. We've had big sales teams, small sales teams, and everything in between. And today we are going to be talking about how you build a high-performance sales team. And thinking back to when I first started in sales, I was selling houses, I was selling real estate, and most real estate agents, I would say the majority of them work as independent salespeople. They do their own prospecting, they qualify, they close, they manage the fulfillment of the process. Very few actually build a true sales team. And so when I switched over to doing what we're doing now in terms of selling all these conferences, scaling the events, workshops, training packages, consulting offers that we're selling, selling private equity investments with apartment building investing, selling all of that kind of stuff, I was pretty fresh when it came to what it took to build a sales team. I just didn't know what to do. As the majority of my experience, I'd just been selling basically on my own. I remember there was this one time I'd experimented. So we had an admin for a short while, and then we had one buyer agent start on the real estate side, but I had no idea what I was doing. So essentially today, I'm going to be breaking down everything that we're doing now and that we know works. So if you're just starting out building your team from scratch, or if you're looking to scale your team, this stuff can really help you. Because for us right now, by the end of the year, my goal is to have 20 people next door, right? So in another, I would say 2 to 4 weeks, we'll have 10 set, ready to go, because we're transitioning everybody from virtual to in person. That's my target. So by the end of the year, I should be able to take Ravi, our media director, walk next door and show you 20 workstations full of sales guys operating at a high level. So not just pylons and plugs, but actually people producing. That's the target, and we're going to be working with you every step of the way and showing you what's happening with that. So first of all, why do you need a sales team? Why does a sales team matter? And this is a lesson I have learned. I've paid the price to learn this lesson, because here's the thing in business, right? So you've got your advertising, right? You need to generate leads. And to do that, you need your marketing, and then you need your advertising. Now, marketing and advertising are different. I'm not even going to go into that today. But you've got your advertising, you've got your marketing. You're going to be generating the leads, potential customers, right? That was one thing I was really, really good at. Even in the real estate side, prospecting was a strength. So generating the lead was really important. And I remember when we first launched the conference, we had Kevin O'Leary the first year. We made a big splash. A lot of interest was generated. And with our big conference now, the multifamily conference, we generate a lot of leads. We literally have, I think, about 6,000 or 7,000 people that we haven't even been able to call from the conference from a lead generation perspective, because we didn't have the bodies. So a lot of companies, when you're looking at lead gen, leads here is the constraint, right? A lot of companies will have a sales team, but they can't give the sales team enough lead volume so the sales team can effectively do their job, which is to qualify and to sell. I, on the other hand, have the opposite problem. We generate too many leads, and we don't have the bodies to actually get on the phone and go through the whole sales process with each one of those leads to maximize what we're getting out of our lead flow. That's a big challenge. It's just as bad as not having enough leads, because when you have too much volume, you get overwhelmed, things get lost. It is an issue, and we're working on it. And that's why we're rapidly expanding our sales team. So that is an issue. But first of all, you have to generate the lead. Then once you get there, then you have to sell. So we'll call it sales. And this is your sales team. This is where they're going through the sales process. So they have to qualify the lead. Hey, is this somebody who we can help? Can we provide services that actually impact this potential customer in a positive way? Does the customer kind of fit who we're looking for? All that type of stuff. They have to qualify. Then they have to give a proposal. So, hey, this is what we do. This is what we can do for you. This is the price. This is the setup, all that type of stuff. How does that sound? Then they have to close and handle objections. This is the sales team process. And this is what next door everybody's doing. We've got 5 new reps that onboarded yesterday. They're right now working, actually they're on their lunch, but right before lunch, they started working on objections. So, once we give a proposal and like, what do we do when the customer says, hey, let me think about it? Or, hey, I have to talk with my friend. I have to talk with my partner, my spouse. Oh, it's too much money. Oh, I don't think it's for me. Like all of those objections, they have to know how to do that. And we have a whole internal training portal just for our company. So we've got all the videos you could ever need. We have an entire encyclopedia on how to pitch, how we do discovery, all of our processes, everything's on demand for our salespeople. If you don't have one of those and you're looking to recruit a sales team, you have to have an internal library, an encyclopedia. I don't care if it's on Google Drive. Like with us, we have an LMS. So it's an actual course that people go through with all the different modules. You need to have that if you're looking to scale your sales team. Because if you're just planning on going one-on-one and training all your sales staff, it's not going to work. You have to be able to offload some of that pressure to that LMS program where they go through at their own self-directed pace, and then they do quizzes and all that stuff, and you can track where they're at with that program. That's important. That's a bit of an aside. Coming back here. So you've got your lead gen. Then you actually have to sell, and then last is fulfillment. Fulfillment, this is where you actually have to take, hey, I've sold this product, now I have to give that product to the customer. Now, businesses will break down at certain stages. So for me, for our business right now, we generated a lot of leads. That's one thing that I would say that's our skill set. We've got good people. Robbie behind the camera, he's our media guy. He does an exceptional job at creating marketing material that generates a lot of leads for us. Really good. Like we've found the guy for that. For the sales team, I started realizing I had a problem, I would say 1.5 years ago with that. Because we had, at the start, we had built a virtual sales team. So everybody was working remotely. And it scaled to be pretty large. At the largest, I think it was like 15 people working remotely selling. And this was for one of our conferences. So it was a pretty large team. But what I realized is because we had such strong lead flow, it was overwhelming our sales staff. And we had the systems we had in place started breaking down. So in terms of how we were sorting out all the leads, that broke because we had too many. How we were calling the leads broke down because we had too many. We didn't have the infrastructure in place. So then we had to fix that issue. We added the infrastructure. So now we have really good systems behind the scenes. But then it started, but then the issue I found I had was virtual was good, but it wasn't great. And I remember speaking with Jordan Belfort about this. So JB came out to the conference this year in May, and we had a really good discussion before the conference about sales teams. And he shared an example of he was working with this one legal office, and they basically 3x their revenue just by bringing everybody from virtual to in-house. And that's a lesson I've learned the hard way, I would say, over the past 1.5 years. Because what happens is, if you're just selling or managing your sales team over Zoom or whatever it is, the training, it's kind of held back because you have to listen to their calls and then you have to book a time or you're sending voice notes. Next door, I've got the guys on the phone. I can literally stand on the floor, listen to their conversation and coach them in real time. There's nothing that replaces that with virtual. It just doesn't happen. Plus, yesterday, we had our new people. They were listening in to one of our sales reps making a sale. 15, 20-minute phone call, went through the whole process, overcame some objections, landed the sale. Perfect. Customers happy, sales reps happy, everybody's happy. But having the new onboard hires see that happen live, that was invaluable. And you can't do that on Zoom. On Zoom, you're listening to call recordings, but it doesn't replace actually being in the room, feeling the energy, watching the salesperson's body language, what they're doing, the notes they're writing. Like, you're literally looking over that guy's shoulder as he's going through the whole sales process. Virtual doesn't really work that way. And that's why we basically blew up our virtual team, and everybody's coming into the office now, because we are building $1 billion sales team, and you can't build $1 billion sales team with virtual stuff. It just doesn't work. And this is coming from me speaking. I'm fortunate to speak with a lot of very successful people through our conferences and workshops that we do. I'm just asking the best in terms of how they run things, and they've all told me the same thing: you have to go in person. So, not saying virtual doesn't work. It worked for us. It was a stopgap measure, but I think because we ran virtual, we left a lot on the table, and we would probably be a lot farther ahead than where we are now if we just moved in person sooner. So the thing I'm kicking myself for is not getting the virtual team and getting the office set up 10 months ago. I think we'd be in a much different spot. So anyways, that was a long segue or aside on that. But for the sales team, you need a sales team, because what happens is, if you're able to generate the leads won't sell themselves, right? It just doesn't happen. You need to have voice-to-voice contact. Sales is a contact game. And if you're a solopreneur, like I was selling real estate, if you're a solopreneur, you cap out. There's only so many hours in the day. Because if you're doing everything on your own, you have to worry about lead gen, you have to worry about the sales process, and then you have to worry about fulfillment. That was me selling houses. It's not scalable. And for you as a business owner, what you want is, you want to be able to extract yourself at some point from the sales process, from fulfillment, from lead gen, so that way you're able to work on the business. Now, depending on your strengths and your skill sets, what you extract yourself from first may differ. So for me, I'm still very much hands-on with the copywriting aspect, with the marketing aspect, the marketing angles, what we're doing, because that's one of my skill sets. I'm able to be a rainmaker and generate the leads. Now for sales, I'm still involved in the sales team because we're basically starting this from scratch. But very, very soon, probably in another 2 or 3 months, I'm extracting myself from that process, because we've got people in place to take over that management role. And now that frees up my time to now focus on more lead gen and really make it rain as we add more and more and more salespeople. So you have to give up control, but what's happening is I'm able to help more people by removing myself up from that constraint, because a lot of my time goes into training, onboarding, and all that stuff with the new sales reps. But once we had that core, now I'm able to get out of that, and then I'll be sharing with you guys everything that happens with that as well, just because there's going to be ups and downs, but that's the game plan. That's what has to happen, because at any position, well, I would say any CEO, your job is rainmaker. So you have to generate the leads for the sales team. Okay. So why do you need a sales team? Well, because you can't do everything on your own. You're not building a business if you're selling everything. You have to build a sales team, because that's your teeth. And honestly, I wish, like, I think of it as like tips of the spear tips, right? So I'm a huge history nerd. So you think of a Roman legion, right? You've got all the tips of the swords, right? The gladius. You've got the tips, and then the pointy bits facing the enemy, and then you've got all your support systems behind the scenes. The pointy bits are the most important part, because if you don't have the pointy bits, you can't make an impact. So your sales team, they're the ones going out into the marketplace. They're the tip of the spear, the tip, the point on the lance, whatever analogy you want to use. They're going out into the marketplace. So sales is definitely superior to the fulfillment side and the advertising side, right? Because you need those people going into the marketplace and collecting that data, qualifying people, and then walking them through your sales process. So let's talk about hiring and hiring the right candidates, how you actually find them. And this is something we're always working on. We're always trying to improve, because you find one thing and then it doesn't work, and you just learn from experience. And I actually spoke about this with Jordan Belfort before the conference, and even Robert Herjavec on stage. And JB was saying how they've tried coming up with some type of personality test to find the right salespeople, but you never really know. And I was even talking with Robert about this too. I was saying, sometimes you find, you find the right person, they're the right fit, everything's perfect, you can see them fitting in, and then 3 weeks later, well, you have to cut them from the team. You never really know. So our approach to finding the right candidates and recruiting them has definitely shifted, and we've even made some big tweaks and changes over the past couple months as we've transitioned from virtual to in-person. So this is how we look, and this is how we're vetting candidates right now. So we hire for one thing only. The number one thing is culture. That's it. Because you can't really teach culture, right? You can't teach, or you can't make somebody really, really want it. You can't teach swagger, right? Every salesperson needs to have a sort of swagger to them. You can't teach that. So that's what we're looking for in our interview candidates. We're looking for those that X factor that most people don't have. Because if somebody, we were just on an interview with a guy, he's got door knocking experience, he's been selling solar for a long time. If you can pound doors every single day and generate business, you can come in here. We can train you on how to sell high ticket stuff. We can train you on how to sell the big stuff, but we can't teach that tenacity. That has to come naturally. That has to come from that inner drive, and that's what we're hiring for. Before, the big mistake we made with hiring is we would only look at candidates who had sales experience. And that was a big mistake, because I think looking back, we probably missed out on a lot of quality people who fit the culture of our team, but we can teach skills, right? Skills are teachable. So skills are teachable, right? Grit is not. You know what? That's a good quote. We should say that. Skills are teachable, grit is not, and you need to hire for the grit. So everything, all the questions we ask in the interview process, it's all tailored towards the culture. Do you have the grit? Do you have the X factor? Okay. We're looking for traits. Hey, if they've sold high ticket before, if they sold what we're doing, perfect. That's a bonus, but we're not necessarily looking for that. Now, in terms of the recruiting process, this is where the biggest changes we've had, because it's just, you have to prospect harder than you actually prospect for your customers for salespeople. That's like Jordan told me the same thing. You have to treat hiring people just like you're prospecting for customers, but go even further with it. So you're creating a funnel. So you're going to have multiple different, you're going to run ads, you're going to do all this stuff to attract salespeople into your funnel, right? This is your funnel. It's going to look just like your lead flow funnel, right? And you're going to have prospects come in. Now you're going to have significant drop off, especially if you're advertising on Indeed. So Indeed's one of the most popular job websites. We do a lot of advertising on Indeed. You just have to know what you're getting into. So these are some real numbers, because when we started doing this process a couple of years ago, recruiting for the team, we got really discouraged, because we would have these interviews set up. We would do one-on-one interviews. So this is what we used to do. We did one-on-one interviews. And then what would happen is we would have maybe 6 set up, and 2 or 3 people would show up a day. But we blocked off all that time to do one-on-one interviews. Big mistake. And we also got really discouraged. Like I said, we were like, oh, what's wrong with us? People aren't showing up for the interviews. That's just the cost of doing business. Because just like not all prospects show up for their discovery calls that they booked, not everybody shows up for job interviews. So what you have to do, you have to realize, you have to understand the math behind this, so you can actually set up a system that is scalable for hiring. And still, we're working on this right now. So, we're probably going to be making tweaks next year based on the lessons we learned this year. But this is what we're doing right now. So with our interview process, so we bring in all these people to the top of a funnel, and they're submitting their applications, which is resumes. Depending on the funnel, sometimes they have to send in a video of them as well. We review those applications. We're not very picky with it right now, because like I said, we hire for culture, and you don't know culture from a resume. So you have to get voice to voice with these people. Because before, we would look at the applications, anybody who didn't have prior experience in our space, we would get rid of them. And I think we missed out on a lot of good people by doing it that way. So if you're doing those one-on-ones, and you're just if you're doing one-on-one interviews for everybody and just Xing out everybody who doesn't fit exactly what you're looking for, stop doing that because it made a big impact on who we brought in and we left a lot on the table. So now once we get interviews in, anybody who's remotely close, who doesn't have a million typos, who actually put some effort in answering the questions we have, anybody who does that, we move them on. And we now do a group interview. Now, a lot from a job applicant perspective, you're like, oh, the company doesn't care enough about me as a person. I'm really special. They should be meeting with me one-on-one. Well, it's just like prospecting, right? It's just the name of the game. You cannot scale a sales team. If I want to hire 20 people and bring them in person, I can't do that with one-on-one interviews. So generally speaking, if you're hiring for a sales director, a VP, a CFO, you're going to be doing one-on-one interviews because your candidate pool is very small. But if you're hiring for a sales position, your pool is a lot bigger, especially if it's a setter or a SDR, BDR, whatever term you want to use. That's more of an entry-level sales position. You have to expand. Your pool's pretty big. So how can you effectively manage that lead flow in there of prospective candidates? You can't one-on-one. So we do a group interview. And in the group interview, we're looking for culture. That's it. We're looking for culture. Do they have the grit? Do they have the X factor? Do they have some swagger? Do they have the confidence? Can we see them fitting in with our team? Yes? Great. We move them on. If no, then it's okay. It's not for them. But we always look for culture first. Now, if they, like I said, if they have experience with what we do, if they've taken sales training programs, perfect. Now, the one question I do ask is, what have you done to improve your sales skills this year? And if they say nothing, and they're looking for a sales position, that's a red flag. Because think of it this way. If you're an athlete and you're in the off season, you're working out and training every single day to make the team during the season, right? You've got tryouts and you got to make the team. A salesperson, you're in your off season if you don't have a job. So what should you be doing every single day? You should be training. But most people, they're not. So how can you expect me as a business owner to put all my resources, my time, have you burn some of my leads during your training process? How can you expect me to do that if you're not even willing to put the time and effort into training yourself? It doesn't make sense. And that's why it's a really shitty answer to give in a job interview. So if you're looking for a position right now, you have to be training because it's your off season. You got to make the team. So give yourself the skill sets that you need to make the team. So take a sales course. Go take some more training, like whatever it is. You don't have to spend $10K on a sales course, but when I ask the question, it's that you should be giving an answer. Oh, well, actually, I just finished reading the sales book, right? How to pitch anything. Right? I just read, I just took a small mini course on, closing high ticket offers, whatever it is. But have some type of answer. Okay, that was a bit of a rant. But we're hiring for culture. As soon as we find somebody with culture from the group interview, we're going to bring them in. So our method right now, Katie and I run this. Let's say we have 6 people on a group interview. We'll identify very quickly who has the X factor and who doesn't. So then sometimes we divide up into separate breakout rooms, depending on that, or we move them to a one-on-one. So once we highlight the culture in the group interview, now we move to one-on-one interviews, which is your typical interview. And this is where we go a lot deeper into the prospect and really find out, do they have what it takes? Do they have the personality traits we're looking for that fit in with what we do? Again, we're not looking for skills. We're looking for, are they looking to improve? But I don't care if they've sold high ticket event consulting before. I don't care if they've sold tickets for 10X stages before. I don't care if they sold tickets for my 2-day capital raising workshop. I don't care if they've sold real estate training programs where we take people from ground zero to the first apartment building. That doesn't matter. I'm looking for, do they have what it takes? Like, what kind of person are they? Will they stick with it? Are they gritty? Are they really determined? Or are they going to flake? Because I can tell you from building a sales team, there's a lot of flakes. Like, we have to cut a lot of people because they just don't have what it takes. So we go one-on-one interview. After that, then we go into comp, so that there may be a separate meeting, all of that type of stuff, and then we end up with onboarding and they're hired. Okay, that's the process. Now, what do the numbers look like? And this is where it gets really, really scary. So out of 100 applications, out of 100 people that show up here, submitting their job applications, we're probably getting 1 to 3 people into onboarding. So we're converting 1 to 3% of job applicants into somebody onboarding. Now, when somebody gets to onboarding, let's say we onboard 10 people. So that's 100 apps, 10 people onboarding. Out of those 10 people, we probably end up with 3. Now, sometimes there's times where we have to cut everybody because they just don't have it. But I would say 1 to 3 people are on onboarding. So when we're looking at numbers, if I want 3 people to onboard, I probably need 300 applications. That's the truth. Now, if I'm looking to get those people to stick, I probably need 600 to 900 applications to get 3 people to stick and become a performer on the team. That's just the cost of doing business. Now, most people, and this was my perspective when I first started, building a team virtually, I didn't understand the math behind it. So I got really discouraged and depressed when, hey, I've interviewed 10 people and I can't find a single good person. Or, hey, I've onboarding 2 people and both of them aren't a fit. I didn't understand that hiring is just as much of an exercise in volume as lead generation is. We generate tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of leads for our big conference and for all the other stuff we do. Like, we have a lot of leads. Now, that's a high volume in lead flow, right? You want to generate a lot of leads, have a process for qualifying, taking them through. The same thing happens with hiring. You have to generate a lot of prospects or applications, job apps in this case, to find the people that you can move on to onboarding, right? Because I have a saying in our company, average people are too expensive. So if you're hiring average people, because it's just, they're going to cost you money, because your staff are the people your customers are talking to. And if your customer is calling up your company for the first time and they get an average person on the phone, well, now they think you're an average company. So that's one thing we're really looking to make a big shift on and really hire top quality people, because average people are too expensive. Okay. So that was a little bit about what we look for in terms of candidates in our recruiting system. If you're doing one-on-ones right off the bat, change it. Like, this was a huge game changer for us. So we do the group interview, identify who has the culture, who has the right personality traits, then we move them to one-on-ones, and then we keep moving on in the process. So with training, so we've made a bunch of big changes in terms of how we train people, and we further made changes now that we're in person. So this is what I used to do. And so this is what I used to do. And a lot of the top people who come to our conference, they gave me some good advice with this. So this is why we've changed. I used to do this. I would hire somebody, and then we would start training them. Now, my expectation at the time, because I didn't know better, was I would say, okay, well, we have to train you for 2 to 3 weeks to make sure you can actually walk through the whole process and sell effectively. That was a big mistake, because as a salesperson, you get really discouraged. If you're just training for 3 weeks, that's really discouraging, because you want to talk with people. You want to start making sales. But we know that you don't have the skill set. So it's a balance between skills and ambition. Ambition is really high when you first start, but so maybe we'll rate ambition 10, but the skill set is a 1, or maybe it's a 3, whatever it is. So high ambition, low skill set. But once you get to weeks 2 and 3 of the training process, your skills have gone up, but your ambitions dropped. So maybe your skill sets are an 8, but your ambitions drop to a 3 or a 2. That's no good either for the salesperson, because now by the time you finally hit the phones, you don't have that oomph that you brought when you first started. So you have to find the common ground. So this is what we've started doing now. Instead of expecting our new hire to walk through an entire process. So for instance, let's say we're selling our 10X Stages workshop that's coming up in October. So it's me, Grant Pete Vargas, doing this thing. Instead of expecting the sales rep to get on the phone and qualify and then pitch and then close, deal with objections with a prospect for this, that's too much to ask right away. We now get them on the phone sooner, and as soon as they go through discovery, fact-finding, whatever word you use, you're just gathering information about the prospect. As soon as that happens, they now pass that off to another more experienced rep. So what that does is that gives the new hire, with the ambition, they're talking with real people like in the first week. By the fourth or fifth day, they're on the phone talking with people. It makes them feel good because now they're actually part of the process. Now they're able to pass off at a certain point because now you've reached where they're at with the skill set. So maybe if they have the skill set from greeting through to discovery, but now after that, their skill set drops off to a 0 because they don't know how to pitch and close yet. They're not there. But this is a much better system, and we've had a lot more success doing it this way than the old way. Old way, hey, we train you for 2 or 3 weeks. I thought I was doing the right thing by equipping the people. But then what happens is you spend 2 or 3 weeks training somebody, they hit the phones with a real person, and then it's very apparent they're not a good fit. So now you've just spent and invested all this time, money, and effort into training somebody, and they're not going to be a good fit. So you might as well figure out whether or not they can talk with a real person in the first week. If they can, great, you keep moving. If they can't, well, might as well find a different position at a different company where it's a better fit for their skill sets, right? So now we get somebody on the phone right away. Yeah, we get somebody on the phone right away within the first 4 or 5 days. They're greeting, they're running through discovery, and then they pass it on, who then can handle the rest of the sales process because that more experienced person can speak about the product and they can articulate the positives and what the prospect can expect a lot better and then handle those objections, okay? So, but that's the training and onboarding. And now in person, let me tell you, going from training on Zoom to training in person, huge change. Huge change. I wish I did this so much sooner because on Zoom, everybody's sitting there in front of the computer. They're by themselves. They're probably not wearing pants. There's all these distractions. They'll turn off their camera. All this stuff happens. In person, you get the energy. Right now, like I said, we've got 5 people onboarding this week. We have energy there. Right? Everybody's helping each other for questions. It's a lot more interactive, and you can read somebody's energy level. You can tell their eye. You can read their eyes better. So as you're talking about something and you see the glaze over a bit, you can ask, hey, what part of this don't you understand? On Zoom, it's really hard to tell. And now, after we had somebody stay late last night because they wanted some extra help, we're able to do that on Zoom with the recordings and all. It just doesn't work. So as we're building our sales team now, we've changed our approach in terms of we've gone virtual to in person, and we're already seeing the benefits of that after 2 weeks. Huge benefits. I wish I did that sooner. In terms of how we're recruiting, I didn't understand the math behind recruiting. I had unrealistic expectations for how recruiting actually worked. I now understand it's high volume, just like leads are high volume, right? You have to generate a massive amount of leads. You're probably going to convert 2%, maybe 3% if you're lucky. And if you're good at what you do with your leads, same thing with sales reps. You're probably going to convert 1 to 3% of those people to an onboarding position, and then you're going to prune from there. That's just the fact of the matter. So now, as we're hiring, we've got somebody working full time on hiring. You know what to expect. So now you can work the math backwards. So for us to hire another 6 reps by the end of the year, we know we have to generate a lot of applications, and that's what we're focused on. But now we have the system and the process to take those applications, do the group interview, which helps with lead flow. We're not tapping out. We can manage a large number of people that way. And then also, the last thing we realized is we had been doing interviews virtually. We then switched to doing interviews in person. Let me tell you, we had a lower show-up rate for the in-person interviews, but the quality of the person we got face-to-face, so much better. So if you're doing virtual interviews, number one, move to an in-person location. I know everybody's talking about virtual right now, but I'm telling you, in-person is superior. For your interviews, move to in-person interviews. You get a much better read and feel for the person face-to-face than you do over a screen. That's going to help you make better decisions in a nutshell. How do they shake your hand? How do they look you in the eye? What's their confidence like? How do they dress? What do their shoes look like? Right? You're judging the prospect just like a customer judges you as a salesperson, right? So we've changed our recruiting. We now know what to expect. We've got all the KPIs. We have the process for that. And then the training totally changed it. We're getting the people on the phone sooner. That kind of solves the ambition issue, but it also helps ease them into learning the new skill sets. So now we layer it on like a cake. We build the foundation, get them up to discovery. Great, we get them on the phones. Then we start adding on, hey, well, now we're going to start walking them through the sales process with a proposal. Once they do that, great. Then we start with the closing, we start adding it on. The sales rep feels a lot more confident. It's better for the customer because now we're able to serve our customers at a higher level because they're still speaking with experienced people, but we're integrating our new reps into that process. It's just better for everybody. So those are the big lessons that I've learned in terms of scaling our sales team here and now transitioning, but you need a sales team. If you're a solopreneur, you need a sales team. But like I said, we have a whole lot of training for our sales team. We're growing. I want to have 20 people at our stations by the end of the year. That's our target. We're hitting 10 very, very soon. So if you're looking for a sales role, if you're a salesperson, or if you want to get into sales and you have that culture fit that we look for, I want you to go to careers.sethferguson.org and apply. I want to hear from you because we've got some killers on the team. We've got really good training. We operate at a very high level for sales. We teach sales at a high level. This isn't telecom sales. This isn't just like reading from a script. We teach sales theory and the application for it. So if you're looking for that type of position and you want to scale with this because we're rapidly growing, I want to hear from you. So go to careers.sethferguson.org because I want to talk to you. I want you on my team. Awesome. So you guys will see Katie tomorrow for She's the Boss. Really excited for that show. That's going to be Katie's first show. But I'll see you next Tuesday for the bullpen. See you later.